What's up, my friends? How's it going today? Well, I came out to make a video and I realized I better check the mail first to make sure that there wasn't any important checks in there or anything, last minute orders. So I ran out and got the mail and come back in and instantly had my subject matter for the video, which I was going to talk about something else, but it's funny how those things pop into your head. And this was it. Got 3 of these in the mail. Obviously, there's probably one for each of the family members here. Yes. And this is one of those wastes of resources that we're forced into by having elections and the system the way we do. It's first off, she's a Republican, which doesn't mean much to me because I'll vote for a Republican if their values were right, but honestly, anybody who seems to be within the Republican Party, in my opinion, their values don't resonate or coincide with mine. This is something that the reason I don't talk about politics too much, specific right and left wing, is because anytime I say something about Republicans, instantly everybody calls me a liberal, bleeding heart liberal. I've heard all the dumb terms, libtard. And honestly, I do hold a lot of liberal values, but only in the literal sense of liberalism, which it applies to freedom of the individual over the machine. And the thing Republicans don't seem to see is that they're usually supporting the machine merely by being part of that group. But the Democrats, on the other hand, are just as bad because they're causing problems and making waves in their own way, and sometimes that can be good, but in a lot of ways it's like a dead standstill. There's just a bunch of idiots in Congress. No offense to anyone in Congress who may be watching and may be actually one of the people that wants to make a difference, because I know that there are people that try. But this is what, I haven't read this thing, and I'm not going to. It's just, I figured it would say the usual thing. Creating jobs, opposing higher taxes, making government smaller, and placing students first. It's just the same stuff they tell us. Every politician's always told us. We all know it. The funny thing, it's not that we're bullshitted. It's that we play along, that we're players in the game so often. It's almost like a joke. You see these commercials for elections, and I, for one, am so grateful I don't have cable right now, because I would be inundated with not just election coverage, but, if you want to call it that, the drug commercials and everything else. So, staying out of the media helps me to formulate my own opinions. Now, I'm not even going to go into the current election cycle for the president, because it's almost like I'm living in a dream. Sometimes I wake up and I think about what's going on with the election and I think, wow, is this reality? Like, wow, are people really that dumb? I mean, nobody likes Hillary Clinton. A lot of people like Trump, but for the wrong reasons. And so it's basically an impasse. I wouldn't have a clue which one of them to vote for. But the same things that everyone's telling us here. Placing students first, it's all about education. Now, I could just run over these 4 basic points. Well, the students first thing. Everybody wants an education, and everybody wants great free education, but nobody wants to pay for it. And when it comes to voting for schools, people always vote in their own interests, and you can see it in the legislature in the way that people vote, but also in the way the administration wastes money. Schools generally are pretty good about raising their own money, at least my kid's school. I mean, there's plenty of corruption in the upper, realms of administration, I'm sure, but the average school, you have the parents that come in and volunteer, and everybody's kind of doing their part, and we're trying to make it work. But the reality is, putting students first, it doesn't matter if an individual politician puts students first. It's about whether the people vote for the students first. Making government smaller, everybody's dream. The only way to make government smaller is to make more legislation to shrink government, which requires more government to do it. The more we grow, the more our government grows. It's just how it works. And I don't know how to break away from that. Opposing higher taxes. Everybody opposes higher taxes. Nobody pays taxes because they want to pay taxes. We all pay taxes because, well, mostly because it goes to pay for the Federal Reserve's interest rate. There's basically really no, your tax money is going to fund wars and a variety of other things. I don't oppose taxes 100% because I believe that a voluntary tax is difficult to collect on. It's very complex to keep a society functioning. Without any taxation system, it would basically be the Wild West, but it shouldn't be taxation on income. So that's for, but everyone opposes higher taxes, and using that as a selling point for a campaign is just so old to us. We've heard it a million times. And I'm actually going backwards on the list because the first one was creating jobs. Let me tell you, that one really gets me sometimes. I don't know if I've ever heard an official say that we need to get rid of jobs. You know what I mean? I mean, it's as if they think that just because they are mentioning it, that there's others who aren't creating jobs. I'm not sure if it was the libertarian guy, Gary Johnson. I just saw a clip today. It looked like him. I've only seen him like once or twice. But he was talking about global warming, and he's like, yeah, the planet will always warm up. He's like, in a couple billion years, the sun will engulf the earth. So, what does it matter? We need more coal plants, is what he said. And I just thought, how ass backwards are the people out there? Whose pocket do you have to be in to want more coal plants? But what it comes down to is the coal jobs, the mining jobs that are being lost. That's something that's near and dear to people in certain states here in America. The coal mining states, which I'm not specifically sure which ones they are. Maybe Kentucky and that area I believe has a lot of coal, but I'm not positive. All I know is that the people who are the coal miners in the southern areas tend to. That's all the job they have down there in some of these places. It's damn hard work, and they don't want to lose their job. They don't know how to do anything else, and it comes down to an issue of humanity wanting people to have jobs and wanting to create a future for our children. But at the same time, we want automation and we want to make things easier for ourselves. And in the process, we've eliminated a lot of jobs by merely creating machines to do those jobs, and now we're pissed at ourselves for creating these things. Of course, that's not always the case. There's a huge issue with people sending jobs overseas, outsourcing. Every company ends up outsourcing. And like I said the other day about the prison thing, of all the things elected officials want to talk about to get themselves elected, they never want to mention things like the prison system. Bernie Sanders did, actually. He brought up all the important points. Bernie Sanders is the man, but, everybody considers him too weak. Why? Because he's a realist, but he's unreal in a lot of people's eyes because he's trying to achieve things that they don't believe can be achieved through peaceful means, that we need to be tough and rough. And we all know where that gets us. It's never worked. We're hoping for a better future. But very few politicians actually share those values and talk about things like the prison uprising, what's going on right now with the prison riots, which I want to bring back up again. There are potential prison riots. At the moment, it's just a standoff, if you will, a protest for the working conditions. I wanted to clarify this because a couple people commented and said, well, prison wasn't designed to be a comfortable place and that they should be working. And I said, hey, I totally agree. I think you're missing the main point, which is that these prisoners aren't working on the side of the road or helping to rebuild sewer pipes or fixing the infrastructure. They've turned prisons into call centers for places like Verizon or answering phones for places like McDonald's. Maybe that drive-through guy isn't there at the building. Maybe he's not in India. Maybe he's at a prison. The Oregon State Prison makes stuff for I can't remember the particular companies, but there's a variety of different companies that utilize this. Even Whole Foods uses prison labor, okay? So nobody's immune to this. I mean, a lot of people are immune, and they're actually creating lists of companies that don't use prison labor, as opposed to trying to find ones that do, because there's so many different people who benefit from it. But is that right? I mean, what if my Kratom business took off and I decided that I wanted to outsource all my packaging and shipping and everything into a prison, and I reaped all the profits from it? and had them sending out and dealing with calls and everything, and I just sat and reaped the benefits of the prison system. Would that be right as an individual? Of course not. Why should it be okay for a company? But the thing is, these companies, they've got their hands in the pockets of these officials, and it's pretty sad. There's very few people who really seem to stand for truth anymore, and the ones who do get drowned out because they don't have the power to speak. They don't have the power to get their message out there. I mean, you can be assured if somebody's strongly opposed to something, and you see ads everywhere opposing something, you can be sure that they have enough money to put behind that. You know, who has the money to lobby against labeling GMOs? Who has the money to lobby against, gun rights? Is it the average gun owner? No. Like this whole thing that's going on, 92% of Americans want background checks for guns. And the DNC had this sit-in thing because the Republicans were trying to block them and saying, oh, we have our, our Second Amendment rights. This silly argument goes on and on. Nobody's denying anybody rights. It's just a matter of wanting to have background checks. But people are they instantly dig in and say, you're anti-gun, and that starts this whole big chaotic movement. Meanwhile, the people who are behind certain things, it doesn't matter what we think. It doesn't matter if 92% of the people want something passed and that it's, evident. Congress treats us like babies, just like the DEA does with this kratom ban, and make everybody feel like, well, it's okay, guys, you just don't know what you're talking about. It's proven over and over. I mean, like with the DEA, MDMA scheduling, and they had 45 pieces of evidence, 33 witnesses, 10 doctors, and a judge who all declared that it shouldn't be a Schedule I substance. And then all of the administrator of the DEA could say was, well, it goes against, he said that you're giving too much weight and testimony to the doctors and their patients. So it blows, basically nobody's opinion matters. It's only the people who make the decisions. And I think that that's just like the parental and the way our parents treated often their kids, Instead of telling your kid why you're doing something, you just say, because I said so, And it's the because I said so mentality. And when everybody's agreeing with each other, when the parents agree with each other, then it's hard to fight that as a kid. And as an adult, it's hard to fight back a government that wants to tell you that you can't think for yourself and you're not smart enough when you know damn well that they don't know the half of it, that there's basic freedoms and rights. So all of these officials who are trying to get elected, who are using these things like jobs and, we want to lower taxes and more jobs, that's great and wonderful, but how are you going to accomplish that is the question. What is your real path? What do you have to offer as a representative that's different than what other people are offering? I feel like everybody gets caught up in the same old nonsense and they have to play the game, and the game's just such a joke. I'm just glad I don't have to play it. I'm glad I'm not obligated to any companies, corporations, and I don't have, I don't have to watch what I say because, I have advertisements, or I don't have to be careful because I'm being followed around as a public official or having all this responsibility, that I can just say what I feel. I mean, that's something that we should be grateful for. A lot of us that don't have that kind of pressure, constantly berated with insults and phone calls and stuff because you make stupid decisions as a leader. And since you're getting all this negative feedback, you just start to assume that everyone else is just dumb and you know what's going on. And then you separate yourself, and that's how government and people separate. And the idea is not to go and fight the government. You see, this is the thing people have. They think we need to overthrow the government, or we need to rebel against this or that. We need to go in and we need to strategically change everything, and it needs a massive overhaul. But we remember that it's supposed to represent us, but it's become almost a dictatorship, and it's ludicrous. I for one find it kind of disgusting, sometimes to even admit that I'm from America. But I want to love my country. It's not that I don't love America, it's that I don't love what a lot of the policies stand for, and I don't feel like my voice counts. And a lot of us don't. So, what do, right? Speak out, make yourself heard. I'm going to go, and I'll talk to y'all later. Have a wonderful day. And looks like the sun's shining out here, which is awesome. Let's go enjoy it.